Here is the key to the elements, compounds, and mixtures activity in your digital notebook. Be sure to attempt and try your own examples in your digital notebook before checking the key. We learn by making mistakes, so when you go through and try to process the information and try to practice, you're going to understand it better than just checking the key before even trying it. So always make sure to do the practice first. If you have any wrong when you're checking the key, all you have to do is fix them. And then, of course, if you don't understand why it's wrong, be sure to ask. So this is the elements, compounds, and mixtures activity. You are matching the pictures to the term. So if you look at the pictures, and if you think about the definition of elements, compounds, and mixtures, elements are the simplest form of matter. So if you look at these pictures, the picture that is the most simple is this one here right in the middle. So these are all just red atoms. There's nothing else. Those are pure substances. It's just one thing. So that would be classified as an element. So going along that theme, if we look at our examples, we can see that there is another element. So if we look at our pictures, the only other example that has the same atom throughout is this bottom one. Now, this bottom one does have two atoms that are combined together, but they are still the same thing. So that is actually considered an element. It's a little tricky. Those are called diatomic elements. Certain elements on the periodic table, like hydrogen, chlorine, oxygen, they're called diatomic, and they have to exist as a pair. But because they're the same element, we're still going to classify them as an element. All right, if we look at the next complex picture, I guess, this one here has red and blue atoms. So the red and blue atoms are just mixed together in the same space. They are not touching. They are just together. So that would be an example of a mixture of elements. They are just mixed together. They're not touching or chemically combined. If we look at the second picture here, these atoms are now touching, which means they are chemically combined. So if we have two or more atoms chemically combined, that is going to be a compound. All right, the top picture has an individual atom mixed throughout, but it also has some compounds. So that is going to be a mixture of elements and compounds. And then, of course, down here we have one compound, but then we have a separate compound, and those separate compounds are just mixed together physically in the same space. So that is going to be a mixture of compounds. So again, if you don't have yours correct, it's no big deal. Just go ahead and fix it so you have a reference to use as we move forward. All right, the next slide. Now you're taking elements or compounds and you're either combining them to make a mixture or a compound. So here are individual atoms that are being mixed together. Over here, this says mixture. So these are just going to be mixed together in the same space. So they're not chemically combined because a mixture is not chemically combined. So to do this, you can either copy and paste the dots, or you can just, not do that. Sorry. You can also just select them from over here and drag them over. So we'll have a few blue atoms that we put in there, and then we'll add a few red atoms. And as long as they're not touching, they would just be physically mixed together in the same space. The second example has the same atoms that you're mixing together. However, now you're forming a compound. So this means that those elements are chemically combined. So now chemically combined means that they are going to be physically touching. So here are the compounds that would represent the mixture of those two elements. Sorry, I should not have said mixture. These are the compounds that would represent that chemical bonding between the two. So that would be a compound versus a mixture. All right, number 3, you have an element that you are combining with that you're reacting with a compound. We are forming another compound. So they are going to be all 3 chemically combined. So this picture here would represent the compound that would form from those two elements reacting together. All right, the next one, now you are finding the two reactants that would make this. If you look, this is a mixture of compounds. So we have one compound here, and we have a separate compound here. They are not chemically combined. They are just physically mixed in the same space. So I'm going to add a few of these compounds. And I'm going to mix them with a few of these compounds. And if we mixed those two compounds together, we would end up with this mixture of compounds. All right, the last one, now we switched it. We put it backwards. So these two elements and compounds are being mixed together to produce this substance. So again, if we have a compound and an element, and we have, so it would be a diatomic element with the blue compounds, and then one green atom. So this compound would be breaking down into this compound and this element. So again, if you don't have these correct, just be sure to go back and check your answers. If you need to fix it, that's fine. If you still have questions and don't understand why the answers were the way that they are, be sure to ask.